Hello everyone, this is Andy Savvy. So I'm going to start a new series and it's called Things Every Woman Should Know. This is going to be the first of, so many videos that is going to just explore some of the things that I feel every woman should know. I have a book coming out called 10 by 25, the top 10 things every woman should know and understand by the time she's 25. Because only 10 concepts or principles made the book, I feel like this is an excellent forum to discuss some of those, but even the ones that didn't necessarily make the book. Today's principle, or at least the first one I want to start with, is if it doesn't align, leave it behind. I want to start with this one because I most recently went through an experience that I had to apply this to. And I had to use this process in order to get myself back on track professionally, I guess, in some sense of the word. At the very basis of this, you really need to know who you are as a person. You need to know your brand, what you want to get out of your life, your relationship, whatever that is, because you can honestly use this principle to just about anything. Everything from dieting, a boyfriend, a job that you're working, you're not certain if you should really stay at any longer. The principle itself is one that states, if there's something in your life that doesn't necessarily align with your end goal, you need to leave it behind. Let it go. This principle, it does three things. A, it helps you grow professionally and personally. B, it eliminates drama. And C, it opens up your schedule in your life to so many other opportunities that you may not be getting because you're preoccupied with whatever's going on right now. The first part of this is that you need to know who you are. You need to know your brand. If you are trying to become a supermodel, you probably need to do things and be doing opportunities that are going to align with you getting an agent, making sure that your body weight is maintained, making sure that your appearance is one that's going to get you work. If you are, an aspiring writer, are you writing every day? Are you journaling? Are you certain on what your content is? You really need to be able to use this principle to help outline and define who you are even more so than you already know. I think it definitely keeps you on track. Me personally, I just went through an experience where I was offered an opportunity to do some work for a company. And initially it started off as a really great idea. And despite the fact that it was a great idea, I knew somewhere in my heart and in my head that it wasn't necessarily something that was going to advance me in my goal 3 to 5 years from now. I thought it was going to be something that was just going to enhance it a little bit, which is great. But I don't really think that I really let it play out in my head how it might possibly derail me, how it might possibly affect my end goal. And so that's why I wanted to start with this one. I did 5 things to get me from that opportunity back on track. So there's 5 things you need to be able to do to apply this rule correctly. The first is you need to know who you are. You need to know what your brand is, what your end point is, and I suggest that you write it down because sometimes when you keep things in your head, you don't really stick to it. And something about when I see something on a piece of paper just lets me know that I really meant it and that I really meant for it to be this way. Now, I don't put in all of the intangibles and a lot of the things that I don't or can't necessarily control, but whatever the goal is, I put it down. And I usually try to give myself a time frame so that way I'm actively and aggressively making sure that I'm sticking to that plan. So the first thing I needed to do was know what my goal was. The second thing I needed to do to get myself out of this, so to speak, is to acknowledge what type of person I was in the experience. There's 3 types of people in any given situation. There's people that get involved with something and they end up kind of being the exception in that they end up working within a situation, even though they have goals and they acknowledge them. They complete the entire goal, even though it takes them 10, 15 years to do it. You know, and they kind of get what they want, kind of not. They end up putting up with a lot of BS in the meantime. But they're kind of your, you know, I really know I want something else, but I'm going to go with the flow because it's easier kind of folk. The second type of person is somebody that might get into a situation and finds himself making a U-turn during that situation because they know it's not something that is going to advance themselves. And that's the category I've fallen in so many times. There's probably so many of you out there that do too. And then there's the third type of person who often does whatever job, career, stays in a relationship, whatever the case is, and completely forgets about whatever their goals or dreams or whatever their endpoint is. They completely forget about that. And quite frankly, they don't even really take the time to define what it was in the first place. If you're that type of person, fine, that's cool. This is really designed more for people that want to be proactive in making sure that they get to their goals. And this is a tool that will allow you to do that. So I had to acknowledge who I was in that situation. And for me, it was, okay, it's time to make a U-turn because I'm not on track. So the third thing I had to do was put down a plan. I don't suggest you leave any opportunity, plan, relationship, or whatever the case is without some type of map. Because usually when you've been traveling on some road for so long, if you just decide to just head out into the wilderness to get back to wherever it is you were trying to be in the first place, you end up getting lost. And you don't want that to happen because you're going to end up in another situation that won't really advance you in the way you need to be advanced. So I had to put down a plan. The next thing I had to do was leave. It was hard. It was heartbreaking. But it's necessary. It was necessary for my growth. I had to open up my schedule in a way that if another opportunity came along for me to do better for myself, that I could. And lastly, I had to stick with my plan. And, you know, and really just kind of stick to the fact that I knew that something else was going to come along that was going to be better. And offer me the opportunity to grow in ways unimaginable. Why do all of this and go through all of this hard work and pain if you are going to decide 2 days later to jump back into a very similar situation? So you need to know, acknowledge, plan, leave, and stick with it. By being able to apply this principle and being able to take those steps, you'll be able to define yourself. You'll be able to continue to redefine yourself in terms of wherever you are personally in whatever situation you're in. You'll be able to have a very clear and concise idea of who you are as a person and be able to keep it real with yourself. I get trying to lie to other people or not being completely upfront with other people sometimes because you don't want them to know your business or you don't want them to think ill of you or to think, well, how could she want to leave that opportunity because so many people would die to be hurt. Yeah, I get it that people do that. You don't necessarily want to tell other people what's up, but here's the thing. Why lie to yourself? Nobody else is going to be more accountable for you, your future, and whatever it is that you really want to get out of life than you. It also eliminates the drama because nobody likes the day that comes that all of everything that you've worked for comes crashing down and part of your spirit knew it was going to happen because you weren't really willing to step out into the world and change your path and get things taken care of. But additionally, it gives you the opportunity to be proactive. If you can be proactive in planning your goals, planning your future, knowing who you are as a person and defining that and sticking with that, then you will have so many more opportunities that are at your fingertips that will be the ones that you want and that will ultimately make you happy than you would have had otherwise. So this principle, and I repeat, if it doesn't align, leave it behind. Next time you find yourself in a situation and you're not certain if it's the right one for you or what to do, ask yourself that to yourself or out loud and, follow the steps, know, acknowledge, plan, leave, and stick with it. And I can guarantee you that you will find yourself in a much better place.